2020-24, resolution of certification of the closed meeting on July 16, 2020, pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to affirmative recorded votes in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this Board of Commissioners that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of Virginia law, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion conveying in the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board of Commissioners in this closed meeting. Chairs need a motion to go back in open session.
Motion to go back in open session.
Second.
Motion properly second. Madam Secretary.
All right, Commissioner Barham,
Yes.
Commissioner Jiggets, Commissioner Prince,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lalonde,
Yes.
and Chair Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Old business.
I had nothing.
You have nothing? We have nothing in old business. Anything, Ms. Winston?
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Can we see if Jeff Cromer is on from the city? Is Jeff
He's-
Cromer up here yet?
He should.
Yeah.
And before we do that, I need to do the approval of meetings, minutes of last meeting.
Oh, okay.
Commissioners, you have before you the meeting minutes from June 18, 2020. Meeting minutes. Chairs, you need a motion approval. Is there any unreadiness?
Motion to approve the minutes is submitted.
Second.
Mr.
Motion
Chair.
properly Madam Secretary.
I think Commissioner Barham has said something. I'm sorry, Chair.
Yes, I was going to say that I'd like to abstain from this vote as I was not present. Thank you.
Okay.
Same here.
Gotcha.
Okay. Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lalonde,
Yes.
and Chair Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. We have any old business, Mr. Bland? You said no?
No.
No old business. New business. Resolution 2020-21, resolution authorizing the execution of the contract for demolition of Lincoln Park, Phase 2 between Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority, CM Munden LLC, DBA.
Excuse
CM
me,
Munden-
on privilege. I have not been able to hear anything. I was on mute. We have to go back to that vote because you did not call my name for the vote, Ms. Weathers.
Okay, I apologize.
Okay.
Okay, so Commissioner Jiggets.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners. We have Resolution 2020-21, the resolution authorizing the execution of the contract for demolition of Lincoln Park Phase 2 between Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority, CM Munden LLC, DBA, CM Munden Construction Services.
Good
Yes, you,
afternoon,
Philip?
Commissioners.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's you, Dolores.
Yes. It's Dolores. I'm here today because I would like to present for contract CM Munden Construction, excuse me, to do the demolition of Phase 2 of Lincoln Park. We issued an invitation for bid 2020-09 on May 22nd for that demolition. And it was also for the remediation of any environmental issues out there. And this will include removal of all buildings, streets, infrastructure, final grading, and seeding of the vacant land to prepare for redevelopment at a later time. We posted this solicitation in EVA and on the PRHA website, and it also went with, excuse me, to Builders and Contractors Exchange. Notification was sent to over 6,000 vendors, mostly through EVA. And the bids were due on June the 18th at 3 o'clock. And the bids were due through EVA, which is the Commonwealth of Virginia's e-procurement system. This is the first time that we've done a bid completely through EVA. Due to COVID-19 concerns, we're moving towards a digital electronic platform. From that solicitation, we received 6 responses. 6 bids came in which CM Munden LLC, doing business as CM Munden Construction Services, was the most responsive, and it was the low bid. And CM Munden is a small woman-owned business, and it has extensive local, state, and federal government experience in demolition and remediation. They've done work with the city of Portsmouth, city of Suffolk, VDOT, and with the Navy. And they had some pretty good references. We talked with their references. And the great thing is their price came in 39% less than what our cost estimate was.
Interesting. Do you think they can get it done for that?
They can. We actually had a phone call with them because we were concerned about that. And we had the architect and the environmental consultant on the phone with us. And the environmental consultant has had previous experience with this contractor. And they have a really good understanding. One thing that he said, a lot of the other contractors were not local. So he know that may have contributed to their price increase. And they're doing, they are going to have 2 subs working with them, but a lot of the work they're doing themselves.
Okay.
So, yes. So based on the recommendations, we will the references and the pricing and the way they're meeting our requirements, we recommend that we go to contract with CM Munden LLC, doing business as CM Munden Construction Services for the demolition of Lincoln Park Phase 2.
When will that start? If this goes.
If this goes through, we can have them under contract probably in August, sometime in August, and well, we may can begin in August towards the later part of the month.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioners, questions?
Adams, wish you well, baby, okay? You feeling better?
Oh, yes, I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, there being none, thank you, Dolores.
Okay.
Chair, Commissioners, we need a motion on Resolution 2021.
I move that we accept the resolution 2020-21 for the demolition of the of Lincoln Park Phase 2.
Second.
Has been motion properly second. Thank you, Commissioners. Madam Secretary.
All right, Commissioner Barham,
Yes.
Commissioner Jiggets,
Yes.
Commissioner Prince,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lalonde,
Yes.
and Chair Smith.
Yes. Commissioners, the other resolution you see up there, that is a typo, so that's already done. Next we have Mrs. Winston. Is it Jeff Kramer? Is it Jeff? You're on mute.
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry. So a couple of commissioners had some questions regarding community development block grant funds. And so we asked Jeff Kramer with the city to give us a brief overview and tell us more about the community development block grant funds.
You got the floor, Jeff.
Okay, well, so I manage the city's community development block grant program, and the city through HUD gets 2 annual entitlements. One is the CDBG, or the Community Development Block Grant, and the other is the Home Investment Partnership Program. And the way that that's done is every 5 years we do a consolidated plan that identifies goals and priorities for the use of the funds, and then every year we do an annual action plan, which is a budget that addresses the goals and the priorities, and that annual plan or that budget is on the same cycle as the city's budget, which is July 1 to June 30th. And as part of the program every year, we solicit applications for funding for either CDBG or home funds. We usually start that process in November, and applications are due in January. They're presented to the city council usually in March, and they conduct a public hearing in April and adopt the budget annually in May. Under the CDBG program, we've been getting in the range of 1.5 million for the past few years now, and so the CDBG program it's very broad in terms of the kinds of things you can fund with it. I sent over this morning a handout to Elisa that she could give you that runs through the types of things you can fund, and it's very broad. You can fund all kinds of infrastructure and housing, rehab, and parks and recreation kinds of activities and playgrounds and services that benefit homeless people or youth programs or just about anything that can benefit a community can be funded through the CDBG program. And the other part of funding something through CDBG is that it needs to meet a national objective, and national objectives are generally that it has to benefit primarily low-income people. That is, people, the benefit is at 51% or more of the people are low-income, and HUD defines low-income as those who have 80% of the area median income. That's the maximum amount. Or it needs to address slum and blight in the community. Those are the national objectives. So it's a two-part thing. It needs to be eligible, therefore, such as a sewer project, and then it needs to be benefiting low-income people in a low-income area, or something that creates jobs benefiting low-income people. Emergency shelter would be serving specifically people who are homeless, who are presumed to be low income, and their low income clientele. So those are the kinds of low income objectives. And then slum and blight are things that is actually pretty broad. It's not just limited to addressing the slum of a building, but just things that a street where there's a lot of curbs that are in sidewalks that are in bad condition. If you document them as being in poor condition, you can document that as meeting a slum and blight objective, and as long as your plan is that you're going to reconstruct those curbs and sidewalks. So that in a nutshell, CDBG. Home is very housing centric. You have to create housing, and you can use home funds for a variety of ways. Like you can buy a piece of land with home, but you need to create housing that will be available for low-income people. And again, that standard is 80% of area median income. And home you can use for constructing housing, for rehabbing housing, for and for tenant-based rental systems. That's sort of broadly, but again, the eligible kinds of things include rehab or conversion, site improvements, but any of those things. So if you use home funds and you're going to put in sewer and water lines, they have to be serving housing for low-income people, and there's a formula that you go through to figure out the dollar. If you invest X amount of home dollars, and you need to create X number of home assisted units with it. Annually we only get about $450,000 of home, and so it's not really a whole lot of money when you're talking about providing housing assistance. For the past several years, we've been largely using it for a down payment and closing assistance, and for tenant-based rental assistance. It's really going to be hard to do some kind of major development project with just $450,000, and then off the top of it, every year, 15% of it needs to be allocated to a community housing development organization. And so that money just really, like I said, in terms of creating housing, if you wanted to do development with it, it would be hard. So we get a lot more bang out of it by doing the down and closing and the rent assistance. On the CDBG side, I also just like to mention, we can fund up to 15% annually for, 15% annually for public services kinds of activities. And those again are, some kind of, an after school program or something, a jobs training program. And then 20% can be used for admin of the grant. And so that in a nutshell is CDBG and home. And so if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer those for you.
Yes, Commissioner Jiggins has a question.
Got the floor, Commissioner Jiggins.
Oh, thank you, sir. Chairman. With the CDBG money, is it possible for the Housing Authority to be the direct conduit of the funds rather than having to go through the city of Portsmouth? That's my first question.
So no, the city would have to be the entitlement. You could not get your own allocation of CDBG. A public housing authority isn't an eligible entity to get CDBG funds.
So then it has to go to the city first, and then like when the Housing Authority had the previous program of having loan rehabilitation grants available to Portsmouth citizens, that was the pathway that it came to the Housing Authority. Is that correct?
That's right. PRHA would apply annually for money, and we would grant them money, and we would put it under agreement. We do a subrecipient agreement with PRHA, based on the program, the budget, and all those things.
And this is my final question. Mr. Bland, did we apply for any of the CDBG money last year?
No, we did not. Not since I've been here. We have not applied for any.
Applied for any CDBG money since you have been our executive director. Is that correct?
Correct.
We did get some funds for the playground from the city for Lincoln, for Swanson and Dale, and we did receive some funds for additional home-related projects, and we received some capital funds we did for Lexington Place.
But not through CDBG.
But not the rehab program that you're talking about.
Right.
We didn't specifically apply. We've got funds for our van driver, for our family self-sufficiency program, for as well with the CDBG funds.
Okay, and I think, Mr. Bland, you probably know where I'm going with this question because I have wanted that to be considered, that being the Housing Authority obtaining or applying for some of that CDBG money to use as rehab for our senior citizens for owner-occupied housing. So I'm making that request again. That's something that obviously we can apply for through CDBG money. And I hope we will strongly consider that, Mr. Bland. Thank you.
Jeff, I have a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about the lots that the Housing Authority is holding on to when they're sold? How that money got to come back to the city?
Okay. Yeah. So through the years, PRHA bought land using CDBG money, and I think a lot of it was done because the city at that time didn't have an economic development authority to buy the land. And I think some of it was also purchased when you were doing the redevelopment out there in Westbury, and some of it just never really got incorporated into Westbury. But so that land, a lot of it is still owned by PRHA. And when the land is sold, the proceeds come back to the city and are then available for use for another CDBG program. And that was actually how we funded that playground equipment that that we're putting in at Dale Homes and Swanson Homes. That was the proceeds from the sale of some land.
Three things, Jeff, and thank you very much for briefing us. Your history with the city's been fantastic. You talked about after-school programs and programs to help with children. I don't know if Dolores is still on the call, but would we be eligible through our FSS program to apply for monies to support the programs that we do after school and with seniors?
Yeah, I think actually a few years ago we even did something, gave some money that was used through your FSS program. But yeah, that's an eligible activity. So those kinds of things are services, public services, and they're subject to that 15% cap. And I just bring that up because we get a lot of service request money, so it's very competitive. I don't discourage you from applying for it, but I'm just warning you, it's a very competitive pot of money.
The second one, yeah, thanks. The second issue, we're really working hard with Lexington Square, and we're very, very concerned about the properties that are privately owned and commercially owned around Lexington. Can we work together with you for either home or CDBG to improve the area around Lexington?
Yeah, you know, so it depends on what you talk about as improvement. If you use home, you have to then create affordable housing. And so I'm not sure if that's what you have in mind. You have to use those dollars, you know, if you were going to go out there and invest in some infrastructure out there, the infrastructure would have to be specifically associated with the low-income housing. But the CDBG, we could, you know, do various infrastructure or public improvement kinds of things out there that would support the area, and as long as we can meet a national objective, probably, you know, some kind of low-income benefit.
The last question, and this is, of course, I think I know the answer already. You said that of the home, 15% had to be set aside for Chodo.
Right.
Do we have any Chodo organizations in Portsmouth?
We've worked most recently with Habitat of Southampton Roads. They had some problems and they went away for a couple of years to try to fix some of those problems. I talked to them, I think it was late last fall or early winter, and they were interested. They you know, presented to me that they fixed a number of their problems and they were interested in getting back in here. The problem that they're having is essentially cash flow. This is a reimbursement program, and so they have to be able to go out and buy the house, and then we'll reimburse them. And so I think that's been hard, and there's a lot of competition out there now with cash buyers, and they have trouble, you know, being competitive with those cash buyers. So we are working with Habitat on a specific project right now, but I know that they're interested, and they're the only ones. I mean, there's been a whole it's a major problem here in Southampton Roads. There really aren't certified Chodos, and so it's been a problem.
So is the city then turning that money back in?
Well, it's sitting here right now. A lot of it, but the home has some very strict time deadlines, but they've waived some of them in the past few years. So there's actually Chodo set aside dollars here now for a few years that are waiting, but if we can't meet the deadlines, they eventually will go back to HUD.
Yeah, Hampton Redevelopment Authority and the Newport News Redevelopment Authority, if my understanding, they manage the Chodo funds for those two cities. Was this a policy that Portsmouth had? Was that the city would manage it?
It's not when you say managing, I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about that. I mean, at one point, I know Chesapeake actually, the Chesapeake Housing Authority at one point, I know, also had a Chodo. Several years ago, maybe in the last 5 to 6 years, HUD revised the regulations with regard to Chodos, and so Chesapeake, the Chesapeake Housing Authority can no longer be a CHODO. Now, if you're talking about that, it would be very hard for PRHA to create a CHODO of its own and be a CHODO that way. If you're talking about managing them in the sense, and I think maybe this is what you're talking about, where the funds are sort of put under agreement with the housing authority, and then you'll work with CHODOs. I mean, I think that's what Newport News is doing. The problem is, it's not the management of it; it's that there's no CHODOs. I know that the chapter of Habitat on the peninsula is much better than and much more together than this chapter of Habitat in Southampton Roads. And so I know Hampton has worked with them. I'm not sure if Newport News does or not, but I mean, in a sense, yes, we could put that kind of agreement together, but that's not really the issue. The issue is there's just no certified CHODOs.
Right. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. Great information. Yeah. Thank you.
Jeff, is the reason that the housing authority in Chesapeake was unable to do so, was it because they couldn't meet that requirement of paid staff?
Paid staff in a separate board.
Oh, in a separate board, right? Okay.
I don't even know. Yeah, it's what you need. I think you need one full-time paid staff, but yeah, they need to be very clearly separated, and I think it's very hard anymore for a housing authority, or at least the way Chesapeake was doing it, that it wasn't there was no clear distinction between them in terms of their boards, and so I think that was the problem, and I think it's harder now for a housing authority to do that.
Appreciate you, Jeff, all the information, man. Long time no speak. You should be down there with you at the Planning Commission. It's David.
Right, how are you?
Great. Thank you for all that you do.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
And if you don't have any more questions, just let me know, and I'd be happy to answer them. Because we can certainly work with you on an eligible project.
Cool.
Right.
It's good enough.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. The next item we have reports. June significant report, activity report. Mr. Bland.
Commissioner's report. In your package, you have the June significant activity report. Any question on anything that's in it? Or after you have a chance to look through it further, if there's anything in it that you need to discuss, if you give me a call or send me an email, I can respond.
I had one comment. Collection rates were at 90% for June. That's the lowest I've seen. I know we've talked before about delinquencies, and I just want to highlight to the rest of the commissioners that they do notice that we had 10% of our rents were not collected for the month of June.
Can I talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that you probably know that there was a moratorium on going to court, and that is just being lifted. So the housing authority, for non-payment of rent, we will be now going to court for collection. But for the month like March, April, May, June, there was a moratorium. You could not do any evictions during those particular months.
Gotcha. Anything else, commissioners? You still got the floor, Mr. Bland. Executive Director's comments.
Commissioner Barham, he sent the email. He was wondering if, due to his work schedule, instead of having these virtual meetings at 1 o'clock, if we could probably do them at 9 in the morning, then he would be in a better position to go to work. You want to talk about that, Commissioner Barham?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I am full-time back in the office, normal work days at this point. So, middle of the day is a little bit sporadic for me most of the time. If we could do a 9 a.m., then, I could just do it from my home and head to work a little bit later on in the morning. But whatever works best for everyone, I can be flexible.
So I guess would the commissioners be open to maybe the August meeting, 5/1 at 9 in the morning?
I was gonna say if we could do every other until we're back to full speed, like next month do in the morning and the month after, if we're not back doing the afternoon again.
Okay.
Commissioner Bond, I have a question. Would 10 o'clock be too much of an imposition instead of 9?
It probably just, I'd probably be in the same position as I am with a 1 o'clock meeting if we did 10, just because my mindset about a 9 o'clock, I work out in Virginia Beach. With a 9 o'clock, I could catch the meeting from home and then head to work from there. But with a 10 o'clock, I think, I'd probably need to get into work and get a few things done before a 10 o'clock meeting. Again, I don't want to, I think if this has been working well for everyone, we can just stick with this, and I'll do my best to attend the 1 o'clock and carry on with that.
Any other comments, Commissioner? Go ahead, Mr. Bland, you got it.
Yeah, we'll just send out a inquiry. Alyssa will send out one just to get a feedback in reference to it. The other thing we have is good news. We are able to provide pay raises for our employees, which will be effective on the July 24th check that they will receive. This will be the first raise since I think 2016. We're in a better financial position, so hopefully every year going forward we'll be in a position where we can do some type of raise for our employees. And they have been waiting for it for the last 3 years, so we're able to do that. And I want to thank all of you as commissioners for working with us and helping to put us in that position where we can now kind of look forward to the future, hopefully with raises going forward in the future.
It's a beautiful thing. Congratulations, staff.
Mr. Jiggins, I have a question on that. The raises, going into this lead-based paint situation, does that not also impact on us being able to fund future raises and everything? Aren't we talking about the same pot of money?
Commissioner, we in open session. We can't talk about that.
Okay.
That case, we're not gonna talk about. We're in open session, remember?
Let me ask my question like this. What is the percentage of the raises that you're prepared to offer?
Isn't that still a closed session?
No, because he just raised an issue about the raises.
All he said was that they got a raise.
Yeah, but it's not a closed session question about the percentage. That's really
monetary. That's a monetary issue, if I'm not mistaken. It should be closed session.
No, that you're absolutely incorrect. If we talk about the percentage of the raises, and he's already made the statement that he was given raises, that is a question that can be answered in open session. Now, where is our attorney, James?
I can answer that. On the Section 8 side, because they have more money for the Section 8 folks. The raises went from anywhere from 1% up to 9%, depending on the program.
Thank you for the response, Mr. Bland.
Mm-hmm.
What else you got there, Mr. Bland?
That's it.
That's all you got? Okay. Now we at that portion of commissioner comments. You all ain't got to speak at once. Commissioner comments.
I would just like to say thank you in regards to being able to keep this going. Sorry I wasn't at the last meeting, but I think everybody's done a wonderful job.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Any other commissioners? Commissioner?
Yeah, we've still got an issue. It's probably closed session that we still need to discuss the executive director and
Yes.
his employment contract.
Gotcha.
So we've kind of left it out there and hasn't been addressed yet.
So we can put that on the agenda for our next meeting for closed session. Got that, Mr. Glenn? You heard that, commissioners?
No, what was
We'll
said?
we're gonna put talking about the contract of our executive director, Mr. Bland, and to discuss it as a board, we'll put that on our next agenda for the next meeting to discuss that in closed session.
Oh, okay.
On that same note, Chairman,
Yes, sir.
wasn't there a list that we had kind of compiled that was supposed to go out to add to or
Yes,
review?
yes, sir. And I will revisit those notes that we took, so we can put those out and circulate.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Prince. Anything else, Commissioners? Where my comments is just this: I appreciate the staff, I appreciate the board going through this trying time. We're making history, basically, and things are going to change, and it is what it is, and we got to roll with it and just see it through. And again, I thank you all for your service, each and every one of you, and continue to stay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. As soon as I'm done. And just want to tell you, stay safe and stay healthy. Keep your vitamin C, your zinc, your black seed oil, all that stuff. Stay on top of it. Wash your hands, wear your mask, do what you're supposed to do. Talking like somebody dead in there, but y'all know I love you. I mean that. Public speakers. PRHA allows up to 5 minutes speaks. Do we have any public speakers? Anyone here? Any online? All minds clear.
All minds clear.
All right. With that being said, chairs in need of a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion probably second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. God bless you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Safe
Thank you.
weekend.